I'm not going to lie, I was really surprised how much I enjoyed the movie If. All about imaginary friends. I personally, as a kid, didn't ever have an imaginary friend, not really like one that existed and was consistent or anything like that. And so I'm kind of jealous of the kids they got to have in this movie. So I thought, let's take a look at the ones in this movie and let's rank them. Which one would I be most happy to have as my imaginary friend? I'm sure that your picks are going to be way different than mine, so let me know what they are in the comments below. Right before we get started, spoiler warning, I am going to mention some story stuff in here. You've been warned. We're going to start off with Blue. Now, is it weird to anybody else that this guy looks just like Grimace and is named after the main character from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends? I'm like, come on, we can try a little bit harder. Now, he is kind of cute. He's big and pretty obnoxious too. But by the end of the movie, I was completely sold on him. He gets such a great moment when he's reunited with his kid and everything. And he likes to eat croissants. He likes coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I'll eat croissants with this guy all day long. He's got the potential to annoy me quite a bit, so I'm not going to get him too high. I think B tier is perfect for him. So Blossom's pretty great. Not really ticking a lot of the boxes for me personally, though. She's into dance. She's a butterfly. She drinks tea. These are things that I can respect, but they're not things that I particularly like to do myself. I can dance from time to time, get into that. It can be a lot of fun. But the tea, she likes it a little too much for me to have that be a part of my everyday life. I have no problems with her, but she's definitely just not my cup of tea. Pun intended. Hold for applause. She's going to be sitting in C tier. Now, Lewis is my speed. This guy is got the sage wisdom of an old person. He's super just adorable. Look at his little hat. He's old and weathered the way that a good teddy bear or stuffed animal should be. And he's just super nice. Super nice. I'm going to put him up in the S tier. Unicorn is just not for me. Not against her as a unicorn, but she's just a little too, excited. Maybe as a kid, I would have been more ready for that. But if I'm picking an imaginary friend right now, she's going to be requiring too much energy to try to keep up with. She is pleasant and nice, again, like most of these guys, but not going to get anywhere past that C tier. Sunny is pretty chill, right? You see he's a flower at first, you're like, okay, what's this guy going to be like? But he's just pretty relaxed and just kind of good at listening. He's kind of leading the support group in the movie when we see him. So he's got himself kind of put together. I like his fashion sense too. He's wearing suits and everything. That's pretty fun. I'm going to get him up into that A tier. Allie, the pink alligator, I also like. It's just a big stuffed animal. Not a threatening alligator. Very cuddly looking. The size is substantial, right? It's a big thing. She's got really kind eyes. It's great. It's good stuff. That's B tier. Top B tier. With Robot, I'm a little bit confused. They talk in the movie about how he's put together and then taken apart and put together. So he's more physical, I feel like. I feel like he should be seen by people. We don't need to get into the rules of this movie. I think that would be dangerous and a rabbit hole that no one would be able to dig themselves out of. But I think he's got a cool look. I love robots. Always have. I think probably the closest thing I ever had to an imaginary friend as a kid was this robot toy that we could put together and take apart again. And so I think he's got to be way up there. And so I think I might put him in that S tier. Guardian dog is one where in concept, I'd be like, heck yeah, superhero dog. I'm into it. He's a little too fiery for me. Sam Rockwell is fantastic as the voice of Guardian dog. But again, if I'm going to have to hang out with this guy all the time, it might be a lot. Maybe it's a good counterbalance though. Maybe he's helping me come out of my shell in a way where a more calm imaginary friend wouldn't. So that could be a good thing. He does legit have superpowers, flies around and everything. So that's pretty cool. He's got a good look. His mask, very snazzy. Just because I'm going to be a little cautious, I think I'll put him in A tier, but no higher than that. The idea of Magician Mouse is appealing to me. I like magic, especially as a kid. I was really into all those kind of magic revealed and magician stuff. And so I could see myself hanging out with the Magician Mouse. But again, she's got a real strong personality, real strong attitude. But this guy's got a passion to perform. And I respect that too. Love me some live theater, love being a part of that kind of thing. I was going to go low with him. I was prepared, like when I started filming this little section talking about him, to go real low. I was going D tier in my head, but just in talking about him, I'm like, no, that's not right. It's not honest. I think he's got to go A tier. I think I got to put him in A tier. I respect this guy. He puts in the time. He's a hard worker. He obviously cares a lot. He's got to be in that A tier. Now, Cosmo, I will stick with being a little too much. In the story and as a character in the movie, a lot of fun. Like, he's all over the place teleporting, and he's always suspicious of everybody. He can get any information you want and might need. But that's not what I'm not gonna want that energy around me all the time at all. It's too much. Like, even the guy, when they like reunite him with his kid, like at the end of the movie, that guy's life is worse. I feel like everybody else who gets to see their imaginary friend, they're like, oh yeah, I'm so excited. But he did not look that excited. I'm sorry to go this low, Cosmo, but it feels like the right thing to do, because I would actively be like, no, thank you with you. You got to go in D tier. They call this guy art teacher. He's like a big version of one of those like posable wooden art dolls, so you can like have as reference. He's got, again, great fashion, right? I love his shirt with this like jacket over it and everything. I love that he's balding. And he's obviously an old man. What kid is coming up with this as his imaginary friend? That's what I want to know. Because that kid is a fun kid. I would love for my kids to be friends with that kid, because that kid's got he's got opinions, and I'm interested in hearing them. I do like art. It's never been my thing. I could see my wife really attaching to this guy more than me personally. So I think I'm knocking him down to B tier, but that's not a knock against him. It's just kind of like a compatibility thing. Don't take it personally. Awkwafina plays that bubble, and man, I've said it before in videos, say it again. Awkwafina is in everything. She's in every animated movie. Some people say that like is a bad thing. I'm just pointing it out as a fact. I feel like a bubble would be a rough imaginary friend to have. I feel like I'd want to at least hug my imaginary friend, right? When I'm scared, you want to hug them. So a bubble, that's difficult to do that with. I think she's going to have to go down in D tier for that reason. Physically, I cannot play with this thing. And so, yeah. Octopuss. This is great. I see it at first and I'm like, oh, that's kind of like a weird like cat octopus mixed up thing. But it's a cat wearing an octopus costume. It's adorable. And then you see these boots. You see these boots that it has on? Very cute. Very, very cute. A cat that can talk also. That's fun. I think Octopuss is going to end up top of B tier. We could definitely hang and have a good time, but I don't think as my personal imaginary friend that it would be where I would want to go first. Now, Spaceman, on the other hand, again, is ticking almost every box that I could possibly have when it comes to picking out an imaginary friend. I loved outer space as a kid and being an astronaut, and sitting in this movie, and they're like, there's the scene where the little girl is, where B is asking her grandma like what she wanted to be when she grew up, and then like thinking about like, oh gosh, all of my old people in my life had that thing too, and then they didn't do it, and then thinking about personally, it's like, oh yeah, I definitely was like, I want to be an astronaut, and then just like not. That didn't happen, which is fine. I grew out of that particular dream, but it was a dream. And so the fact that there's a spaceman in this movie speaks to me, and he's awesome. And seeing his like world where he's jumping around in space on the moon and everything is just so good. And the fact that he's voiced by George Clooney, love it. He's also like eating an ice cream cone, or he's eating a candy apple through his helmet, which is mystifying. I love that too. This guy's S tier, 100%. I love him. I think he's top. I'm putting him at the very top for me. Now, I know for a fact that the ghost had a fancy name. They asked him his name and he had a fancy name, and I can't remember it, and I apologize. And so if you know it, please let me know in the comments below. I want to remember it. So anyway, but I liked him a lot. Royal, regal dude. He's got a crown on his head. The fact that he literally is like a ghost in a sheet. That's so good. It's so funny. It's a little bit spooky, but he doesn't seem like overly scary. So for me, he's going to be in that at A tier. Now, Ice is one of the few imaginary friends we actually kind of like hear about like how he came to be, and that like his kid lived in Arizona and so it was hot all the time. So he imagined a glass of ice water as his imaginary friend. And I don't know, he writes it off as not being very creative. I think it's very weird and very interesting, very creative, because it's not like he's like the ice cube that lives in the glass of water. He is a glass of ice water because his face is on the ice. His arms and legs are attached to the cup. So it is very complex. He's living in danger all the time. He almost gets drank during the movie. Terrifying. I would hate to see that happen. It's probably too much pressure to try to live with him around for me. I'm going to put him in C tier. So we get to the Gummy Bear, a giant gummy bear, person-sized gummy bear. It seems weird because you don't want to eat them. They're your friend. But they're made of food, and like a good food. It's like, oh man, I could eat a giant gummy bear, but they're alive. And it's just very conflicting. Like, I mean, obviously you get to know them. You don't want to eat them. You're not going to eat them. But I'm running into the same kind of issues that I was with the Ice Cube guy, where it's just like, I don't know, it's stress. It's stressful. I don't want to be stressed by my imaginary friend. I'm putting her in C tier. Because if it came down to it, sure, she can hang out. We could be friends. In the movie, they make it seem like Marshmallow Man is gross, right? Like that he's melting. Ryan Reynolds is like throwing up when he's watching his face melt and everything. And I'm just like, this guy's got a great disposition. It seems to be, it's magical fire, right? So you don't got to worry about that. We're not worried about him catching anything on fire. So that's nice. But this guy is just like having a good time. I love s'mores. Again, we're into the food issue where it's like, kind of want to eat him. But again, he's alive. And so he's my friend. I don't want to eat him. Technically, you could eat anybody, like if you really wanted to. So I guess that's always part of the equation of being friends with anybody. So there's not too many negatives on this guy. Do we run the risk of everything getting sticky, though? Because a toasted marshmallow is one of the stickiest things in human existence. And so I think maybe I'll put him in that B tier. The slime is fun. This guy is like essentially Blue from Foster's Home, but he's green and not named Blue. But when it comes to the slime in this movie, he's caring. He likes his kid a lot, so I'm all about that. But there's just not much to him when it comes to like what I know. So I think I'm gonna have to put him in C tier, just kind of based on lack of information. Get to know him a little bit more. He can move up or down the list for sure. Keith is the easiest one out of all of these. He's F tier. He's the invisible imaginary friend. Fun joke in the movie, but in reality, like, what do we even do with this guy? Best case scenario actually is that he just does nothing, and I don't ever realize he's there. So maybe I have an invisible imaginary friend right now, and I just don't realize it because he's a good invisible imaginary friend. Whereas Keith is, I don't know, haphazardly laying around is what we're supposed to assume. And so, that's not great. So I'm putting him in F tier. This is an easy one for me. I don't even have to feel bad. I don't see his face. I don't know how he's responding to it. I'm sorry, Keith, but you're at the bottom. And then that brings us to the spoiler one. All right, last chance to get out if you don't want to hear spoilers. But that brings us to Ryan Reynolds as Cal, or as his full name is Calvin. He's the imaginary friend of B, the main girl in the movie, and she doesn't remember him until the very end. Now, originally I was like, oh, a real life guy as my imaginary friend? I don't think so. But now I'm just like, I don't know. We're just buddies. We just hang out. Like, I feel like me and Ryan Reynolds versus me and all these other guys, I have more in common, obviously. And I know that for some people, this would be an easy S tier, right? Ryan Reynolds hanging around all the time and everything. I do like Ryan Reynolds. He's undeniably like charismatic. I was fully prepared to go low. Again, a lot like Magician Mouse, but in thinking about it during the video, I think he's going to be a bit higher. Because again, potential. I think I'm going to put Calvin at the top of B tier. And there's my list. Again, let me know your pick for the best imaginary friend in If, who you would like to hang out with the most. I'd love to hear it in the comments below. If you've gone out and seen If, let me know. Also, what did you think of the movie? I really, really enjoyed it. Way more than I thought I was going to. I was ready for it to be just kind of like a mid-tier kids movie, but I don't know. I think it's kind of something special. That's going to wrap up today's video, and if you did enjoy it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Until then, take care. Bye.